The first little carton of milk at a very low price, but after that it gets bad, and then it gets up to 275, 300%.
It starts with that first cheap carton of milk drawing folks in, but then the real sting hits, jacking prices up to 275 or even 300%. Down in Mexico, they're going all in to ramp up their own milk output, and up north, the US is griping about Canada's so-called protectionist ways in the dairy game. Talk about calling the kettle black, especially when their own report reeks of double standards. We're looking at $32 billion here, folks. That's the chunk Canada just scooped up. No fanfare, no big reveal, by sliding right into the spot the United States used to hold in Mexico's milk imports. And the real kicker? It all went down without a peep. Mexico, who for years snapped up boatloads of American dairy, has eased away from the pump. No more rivers of milk trucking from places like Wisconsin and Ohio straight to spots like Guadalajara or Mexico City. In their place, Canada's filling the gap with smoother supply lines, tighter quality checks, and something the folks in Washington are fumbling these days: reliability. For American dairy hands already battered by fees, dry spells, and climbing expenses, this isn't a minor setback, it's a real body blow. What's the timing about? And why pick Canada? Is this a quick switch up, or the beginning of a bigger shakeup in who the neighborhood counts on for its daily dairy? And bigger still, is this how a giant like the US slips out of the farm trade chair without even noticing the seats empty? Let's dig in. Back in the day, US dairy shipments called the shots worldwide. Just in 2023, Mexico alone gobbled up $2.32 billion worth from America, making up about a quarter of all exports. Then, on February 4, 2025, President Trump dropped a 25% tariff bomb on Mexican goods using those emergency rules, shaking up the solid trade bonds we'd built. From January to March that year, the value of U.S. dairy heading south dipped 0.5% behind the year before, hinting at cooling interest. Early 2025 saw cheese volumes to Mexico drop 5%. Even as the rest of the world kept growing. That was the first real quarterly dip for a big US dairy item in ages. Bottom line, those go-to markets are cracking under policy fights and changing buyer vibes. Through 2024, Canada's milk makers slipped in under the radar to grab a piece of Mexico's pie. Their exports climbed from 2.86 million to 4.78 million, a solid 67% jump year on year. Sure, that's peanuts compared to the US billions, but it shows how leaning too hard on one tariff-free buddy can bite back. When the rules flip, even steady customers can go icy. Mexico's turn here points to bigger worries about steady supplies and top-notch rules. Now, their rules lean towards sellers with solid oversight and strong local support. Put simply, after banking on US reliability for so long, Mexico's playing it safe with backups. Washington can't just count on blind faith from its prime milk buyer anymore. On the flip side, US milk folks are staring down shrinking sales and ballooning costs. From the Midwest prairies to West Coast spreads, that spells slimmer profits and foggy planning. Experts say keeping production humming means quick fixes, like spreading out suppliers or haggling smarter deals. Without it, the industry could hand over turf to rivals who line up better. Time's short as fights and flows redraw the dairy map. America's edge isn't locked in for this cutthroat farm power play. If the lead slips, others will step up fast. The days of unchallenged milk rule might be winding down. Shifting from the US losing ground, let's see why Canada's dairy keeps coming out on top. Come January 10th, 2025, Canada locked in a countrywide rule saying all milk cows get plant-only feeds, no growth boosters or drawn-out meds. That move kicked off a fresh chapter in farm morals. By mid-April, their Proaction tracking tool, tied into Dairy Trace and Simply Trace, had every cow's backstory logged, connecting each bit of shipped milk right back to its home pasture. Importers get total peace of mind on how things are done and how animals are treated. Over in the US, as of May 2, 2025, most dairy spots still use batch-style logs, with about 80% of extras not digitally nailed down, making foolproof tough. That weak spot in tracking leaves US loads open to questions. Late June 2025, Mexico flat out turned away a US milk batch for not hitting the ethical bar Canada set, a bold slap in trade talks. That one load meant millions down the drain. Mexico's call shows how tough animal rules and clear views can tip the scales on deals. For producers coast to coast, The wake-up's loud, cranking out tons, doesn't cut it for entry anymore. Buyers want hard evidence of fair handling and see-through chains. Without stepping up to Canada's level, U.S. dairy will fight to win back faith. Now, it's do or die. Beef up the logs and care codes, or kiss more markets goodbye. This turn spotlights a global food shift. Openness and right-doing aren't extras, they're must-haves. Canada lays out the winning map, and it's a heads-up for anyone who sleeps on chain strength. Layering on to the U.S. export fade, Canada's climb spotlights a huge dairy standoff. Mexico used to be the rock-solid U.S. buyer, stocking shelves with our steady flow. But in this year's first quarter, total U.S. dairy outgo dropped £0.7 billion. Proof that steeper fees are freezing things up. Early January 2025, Canada required plant feeds for herds and outlawed everyday antibiotics and hormones. Mid-April brought Proaction online, so buyers can follow every load to the exact field. Just last month, Mexico nixed a U.S. shipment over ethics misses, a sharp trade dig that call zapped American farms of millions and kicked off a time when fair sourcing beats bulk. As of late May 2025, Mexican buyers say they'd shell out extra for fully open goods. Younger crowds don't just eye the tag, they grill on feed types, grazing room, and drug habits. Canada delivers with honest tags and online files. U.S. outfits, though, stick to group tracking sans per cow tails, leaving them wide open. The ripple hits from Wisconsin creameries to California operations, where thin edges and high bills now endanger the whole setup. Faith's the hot ticket in world dairy now. Washington needs fast tweaks to grab back turf. Farm towns and backroad spots tied to exports stare down shaky times. DC bosses have to juggle home showbiz with real trade fixes. If not, Canada's billion-plus Mexico link stays king. The fight for milk top spots now a trust tussle, and the US got the memo. This farm saga will ring out way past North American dirt and desks. All over America, milking sheds are dimming. By mid-2023, licensed dairy spots had slipped to 26,029, a quiet alarm that the country's farm spine is fracturing, family by family. Once the soul of everyday life, ranching slipping away, not an uproar, but hush. Yet the Fed scored just 30% thumbs up. That gap shows why so many feel ditched. Loans are defaulting as costs for basics skyrocket. Feed, hands, gear all up. No sales bump to match. Milk tags bounce wild with feed jolts and world swings. Little outfits see profits vanish quicker than drought grass. North of the line, Canada's small milk runs have stayed even for 15+ years. Their price safety nets and hard caps on output shield folks and keep markets even. That rock keeps sheds busy and towns whole. Down here, stalls echo more. Big money skips the wild returns and debt piles. Spots handed down ages now rot unused. Mexico's buyers spot these shaky spots. They're turning to Canadian flows for the tracking and fair promises. U.S. hands could lose old ties. Watchers say dragging feet worsens it. No shift to fresh setups, and the milk rows keep draining. Country villages banking on dairy cash eye dim paths. Trade and farm chiefs in DC pick flashy moves or smart plays. Time's up as jobs teeter. For the little guys, it's beyond buck. It's about holding on to who they are and their tight-knit spots, keeping the tail rolling. Mexico's old lean on U.S. milks starting to buckle under trade rubs. The smooth U.S. dairy stream now hits bumps from fees and red tape. When Trump unveiled fresh continent-wide duties, that base wobbled. Then came stiff U.S. trade pushes that jarred the shore milk paths. Almost instant, those extra bucks cooled the old flows. As shoppers pulled back, U.S. sendouts eased, even pre-dairy payback hits. Meanwhile, up in Canada, they clamped down. Early 2025, Ottawa banned fake growth shots and demanded strict drug checks on all outbound milk. Their Proaction tool now tracks each bottle to its barn. That openness packs a sales punch. Big in spots the U.S. owned. Turns out, trust carries a markup. Stateside, the hit's harsh on kin-run milk spots. Since tons of family dairies have gone mum, vacant sheds and locked gates now scar lands once buzzing with milkwork. Those shutdowns gutted farm hamlets and yanked local dough. In Mexico, folks aren't scanning prices alone. They probe cow upbringings, eats, and if meds were routine. Kids especially push for right ways over cheap tags. Canada steps up with true label pushes, even taking smaller hauls at fatter cuts. The US trails with batch logs that skip per beast careproof. DC's hard lesson: in modern milk battles, clear wins. Bulk solo won't hold turf. Outfits not matching Canada's tracking risk, giving away key dirt. For US Milk World, it's plain: lift the fair play and sites, or see the slip repeat endless. This Canada-Mexico milk tie-up ain't some side paper. It's a loud bell that rules shifted. Once the core of regional cream, the US now gets edged by what no gadget fix can swap: faith. So, the true puzzle ain't US output gallons. It's the yarn spun with each one shipped. Will milk bosses halt, rethink ways, and remake buyer belief from scratch? Or cling to raw tons as their lone fight tool? What's ahead might recast not just packs, but the link twixt growers and homes. What'd you grab for your spread? Bargain brew? Or a pour made with care?